Regarding sin, 1 John chapter 1, verse 8, if you say you are without sin, you are deceiving yourself. So much for the person who comes in and says, well, at least I didn't kill nobody. Well, did you commit any sin at all? Well, yeah. Well, then, if you commit any sin at all, if you say you are without sin, you deceive yourself. We're all sinners. Romans chapter 5, through the disobedience of one person, Adam and Eve, the many have been made sinners. You're a sinner. Romans chapter 3, all have sinned. This is what the Bible says. Romans chapter 3, verse 23, everyone has sinned and is now deprived of the glory of God because of it. Romans chapter 6, verse 6, you are born in slavery to sin. Why do you keep talking about sin? Because I'm on the chapter of sin in the talk, all right? Romans chapter 5, verse 18, through one transgression, condemnation has come upon all. Titus chapter 2, verse 12, we have godless ways and worldly desires in us. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 18, we are futile in our conduct. 1 John chapter 3, verse 4, everyone who commits sin commits lawlessness. James chapter 2, verse 10, when we sin in one way, we are guilty in respect to the entire law. So a person who sins in any way is guilty of the entire law. And guess what law number 5 commandment is? You shall not kill. So if you commit any sin, guess what? God says you killed. So you can't even say, at least I didn't kill no one. If you sin at all, you're found guilty according to all. That's according to James chapter 2, verse 10. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 1, you were dead in your transgressions and sins. In Romans chapter 6, verse 23, the wages of sin is death. In Romans chapter 5, we've already covered this, helpless, ungodly, sinners, and enemies. So to go a little deeper, what does it mean to be helpless? Colossians chapter 2, verse 14, there is a bond against us. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 10, we were a no people and we were not receiving mercy. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 25, we had all gone astray like sheep. And Revelation chapter 3, verse 17, we do not even recognize that we are wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked before God. Helpless. Ungodly. What does it mean to be ungodly? Ephesians chapter 2, verse 19. You are a stranger and a sojourner. In Ephesians chapter 4, there's futility in your mind. You are darkened in your understanding. You're alienated from the life of God with hardness in your heart. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 22. You've been corrupted through your deceitful desires. In 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 18, you are called unrighteous. In Jude, verse 18 and 19, you live according to your own godless desires. You live on the natural plane and you're devoid of the Spirit. That's ungodly. With regard to being a sinner, Colossians chapter 3, you are filled with all kinds of things, immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and the greed that is idolatry, anger, fury, malice, slander, and obscene languages that comes out of your mouth. Titus chapter 2, you're lawless. Titus chapter 3, you're foolish, disobedient, deluded, slaves to various desires and pleasures, living in malice and envy, hateful ourselves and hating one another. And with regard to being enemies, Ephesians chapter 2 says you're far off from God. Ephesians chapter 2 verse 12 said that you are without Christ, alienated from the community, strangers to the covenants of promise, without hope and without God in the world. Ephesians chapter 2 verse 14, there is a dividing wall of enmity between you and God. Colossians chapter 1 verse 21, you are alienated and hostile in your mind because of your evil deeds.